To Kill a Mockingbird and Gone with the Wind, and unforgettable characters such as Atticus Finch, Rhett Butler, and Scarlett O'Hara have thrilled millions of readers decade after decade. Now, there is a new treasure trove of books out there that are mostly ignored. Many self-publishing authors are just waiting to get discovered. We are encouraging readers like yourself to take a chance and read their book. You can find them on Amazon.com, Amazon on Kindle, Barnes & Nobles, Goodreads.com, and Kobo. Also on Scribd, Versa, and iBook, or hopefully soon at your nearest public library.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on our new episode of Bios to Books. I'm your host, Dan Davidson. Before I introduce today's guest author, I'd just like to thank our loyal followers for their support. And if you are new to the show, welcome aboard. If you haven't yet subscribed to our channel, please press the subscribe button and join now. It costs absolutely nothing, and it goes a long way for helping us on YouTube. Thank you. My audience might notice I have someone sitting in the second seat tonight. I'd like to introduce the owner of RCJ Productions and the co-host of Truth About Beer, Keith Davidson. Welcome to the show, Keith.
Thanks for having me.
So, I mean, as I said, I just mentioned, you're not new to this. You co-host your own show with Papa Joey on Truth About Beer. So this is kind of easy for you. The guest that we have today that I'm going to talk about a little bit in a second, you've had this team on your show,
Yes.
Truth About Beer, correct?
Yes, we have, yeah. Yep. His name is Ron Yakovetti. They call him Ron the Yak Man Yakovetti. Ron, to my surprise, I didn't know this about him because I know him from the paranormal side, but he is a successful stand-up comedian. So that's pretty cool because I like comedy. I enjoy it. And he's co-host on a show called Entity Voices. There, you can find them on YouTube. He hosts along with Tony and Cherie Rathman, and he co-hosts with his wife as well, Lourdes, and Chris and Audra. So it's a lot of fun. They're a great team. My experience with Paranormal, I have not seen, and we work with some other teams, but I've not seen a better, well put together team than Entity Voices. It's just and the stuff they get on their investigations is just mind blowing. For anybody who may have seen our show, just some of the evidence, it's just crazy. I mean, you watch a lot of TV shows that are paranormal TV shows, and everybody has their opinions whether or not it's faked or not.
Right, it's a little more scripted.
Right.
Whereas, I mean, I watch this show a lot. It's on Monday nights. I watch it when I can, and I tell you, they've had some incredible evidence coming up, and they're a very talented team.
Yes.
And I'm not just saying that because he's on the show today, but they are truly a very talented team. So anybody that's interested in the paranormal, get a chance to watch Entity Voices. It's on Monday night, and it's a really good show.
Yeah, you don't want to miss it because it's incredible, and they do not fake 1 ounce of evidence. I mean, it's just everything they get is true. It's raw. It's just incredible. And if you have any doubts about the paranormal, that is a show to watch. Absolutely 100%.
It'll definitely make you think a little bit.
Oh yeah,
yep,
very much
definitely.
So. Very much so.
Well, now that we've already introduced the guest, I'd like to introduce our guest author, Ron the Yak Man Yakovetti. Welcome to the show, Ron.
Hey, Ron.
Hey, go. I have myself muted because in case I make any embarrassing sounds before the show, I don't want that to be my lead-in. So,
Absolutely, I understood. Absolutely understood.
Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. We are also fans of Keith and Papa Joey and the Truth About Beer. We had so much fun on that show, and for me, when I put myself in the audience seat, the host or hosts and or guests that can fuse the entertainment and education and knowledge into one episode every time they do it, that's what I love to watch, and those guys definitely do that. So I appreciate the kind words coming from folks like yourselves. I do.
Oh, right back at you. Thank you very much.
And rightfully deserved. I mean, you guys have a good show, definitely. Like I said, I watch it a lot. It's tough sometimes. Sometimes I have to watch it after the live show because Monday nights are difficult for me sometimes, but I try to catch it when I can. And you have some incredible evidence coming up on that show, really incredible. And I'm not 100% believer in the paranormal. I mean, my son has made me much closer to it than I ever was in my life. And I had a personal experience in Globe at the jail that I might even share with you later. But so I'm more a believer now than I was before. Put it to you that way.
And that sounds like you're somewhere in the middle. And I think, in my personal opinion, I think that's where the truth lies. You know, I think there's too much of a preponderance of evidence to say that there's nothing to this, and there's no. I am not big on laziness in this field. There's no blanket statement that's going to go, here it is. All the paranormal phenomena we thought was paranormal isn't. It was just a guy named Steve. No, it's not going to be that easy. You have to go over every instance one by one by one. And I think that's the problem in provability and disproving that a lot of people are too lazy. They're looking for the blanket explanation that says this is what causes all this audible phenomenon is this.
Absolutely.
Well, sometimes, yes, but not always, and it doesn't always add up.
I think that works with extraterrestrial. The questions about that. Are there people from other planets, stuff like that? There's no solid answer, and there's no solid evidence. But there is evidence, and you need to look at it, and you have to keep an open mind. You know what it is, but you have to keep an open mind about it. I do have a question for you, but I think I'm going to let Keith ask you this question because I'm very curious about it. So, and I think Keith wants to know too.
I was curious too. So where did you get your handle, the Yak Man? Where did that come from?
That's a great thing. Okay, so I embraced it after a point. I for a period of time, and it's in the book and my bio and everything. I worked in not for the UFC, but since people know the UFC is the brand. I worked in mixed martial arts and boxing as a commentator, interview host, and I worked for a company that was competitive with the UFC for a short time on Showtime and CBS. And one of the guys who worked there kept tripping up on Yakovetti, and that is understandable. So he started calling me Yak Man, and he would label things that were for me in the office. He would label files of interviews I did, Yak Man with whoever the fighter was. And so as a lark, I just started saying it on camera. And it got to the point when I remember going to an event in Corpus Christi, Texas, and I'm outside the hotel talking to a couple fighters and managers, and they introduced me. This is Ron, this is whoever, and we're all talking. And then somebody referred to me as Yak Man, and the guy goes, wait a minute. He goes, that's you? He had been talking to me the whole time. He didn't know my name. He knew that. So it's easier than saying my last name. So that's where it came from. It was one guy who worked on the promotional side of the fight industry I was in, and he gave me the nickname. And then it's, since it stuck so well there, let me just take it wherever I go.
Makes it easier, right?
So is that your stage name when you do stand-up comedy? Sorry.
No, actually, the only reason it's not is because my stand-up experience predates the.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, the birthing of that nickname.
Oh, okay. Yeah, when I first did my research on you and I read your last name, you know this from doing your own shows. When you see a certain name come up, you say, am I going to be able to pronounce this? Am I going to screw this up?
I say that every week with my own name. Every week. Okay. Am I going to be able to pronounce this? Can I say this properly?
Okay, so then I don't feel so bad. That's good.
No, should not. Okay.
What I want to do first for the audience to get to know you a little better, I thought we'd do a little audio bio on you. You could talk about yourself a little bit, give us a little background, talk about what you feel good about, and what you don't want to share, that's fine too, but just maybe get the audience a little more idea of who Ron Yakovetti really is. There, I said
that was good. That was good. Very good.
Yeah, that was really good. I don't know where to begin. I don't even find you that interesting. I'd like to talk about somebody else that I know. No. Right. I love all this stuff. I've been doing this for well over 10 years now, which, sounds like a body of experience and time invested. But in the scheme of things, I know people who are doing this 20, 30, 40 years. So I still somewhat in the infancy, I guess, of any kind of paranormal experience. But it is, again, I would think that would be more of what I should speak to. I mean, I have a background. Obviously, I worked in entertainment. I wrote films for a while. That was how, when I started doing paranormal, I lived in LA. That was how I got out there. I came very close to selling a movie script to Warner Brothers or Paramount Pictures. I had an open door with one of the senior execs there. It was an exciting yet turbulent, time, because it's, Hollywood's a lot of ups and downs. You're almost there all the time. So
most of it's down though.
Yeah, but I had some really fortunate things, and one of the things that came out of it was the work in the fight industry, and that really blossomed for a long time. I got scouted actually by the WWE in 2019. Yeah, 2009. I'm sorry, I always mix it up. 2009. I got scouted. They flew me out to Connecticut from LA for a broadcasting possibility. The comedy background for me has been. It's like having a superior line of credit. Like, there's nowhere that I take it that it does not in some way reflect positively. It helps in a 9-to-5 job, in broadcasting and hosting, interviewing. It's just, you learn how to connect with people in a really high pressure way when there's expectations. And it's difficult when you first start out because you don't understand why other people are getting laughs and you're doing the same thing, supposedly missing a lot of the nuances, and you're not getting the same result. That experience is the most valuable thing I've ever done. It helped me in the broadcasting side. And then when I went into the paranormal stuff, it's ironically the person I was dating at the time I started doing anything paranormal out in LA said, "Oh, you're going to end up on TV doing it." And I went, "This is the one thing I'm doing, not with the intention of being on TV with it. I am genuinely not just passionate, but really curious. I'm really intrigued by what I've seen that people are already doing with this stuff, people who came far before me, and so I'm more of a student of this. I'm not looking for TV, but things, I guess, start leading in certain directions, and if that becomes one of them, then so be it. It's transformed me in a lot of ways. Like, I was in school, I didn't like to read when I was in school. I mean, I would in very small instances, but not for the most part. No, I wasn't really into reading. And then I'm what I call an inspired reader. If I'm really interested in something, I'll go book, 1 or 2 a week. I can go through them. Right. If I'm not interested in it, like just to pick up like a sci-fi or a romance novel, can't do it.
Right.
I got to be into it. And so this paranormal stuff sparked the second wave. Bless you. No, sneeze off camera. It sparked the second wave of an educational, uplifting moment for me that I've ever had. The first one was with a lot of the ancient civilizations in Egypt stuff. I was very into that for a while. If you know, one of the independent Egyptologists, John Anthony West, who's on a lot of the shows, he's since passed away. He came to my apartment to hang out and talk when I lived in LA. He had me at his house for lunch upstate New York before I even moved to California in the late 1990s. And at that time I was doing a lot of reading and that stuff too, but the paranormal stuff by far has got me the most hooked. There's so much not only to learn from who came before us, but then there's so many theoretical possibilities, and then other branches of things that are not paranormal: consciousness, physics, quantum physics, sound, electronics. There's so many other things to study that may or may not tie into what we do. And then so there's another parallel with the comedy is the mindset of the comedian is looking for inconsistencies and hypocrisies, and you do that for comedic effect. But what I find, and there's a lot of it in the book, what I find is that it doesn't turn off. and I do it a lot in this field now with regards to terminology we use, the way we frame things, what I mentioned before with being lazy, with trying to explain things away with one statement that covers everything. So that analytical mindset that comes from that, I wouldn't trade for anything. I was out there in California. I was married at the time, and then I got out there because I almost sold film. Like I said, I ended up doing stuff in TV and then the sports casting stuff. And when I got separated, which is a very amicable, friendly separation, my ex, this is something personal. My ex-wife and her husband are two of my best friends now. My son's here with me this weekend. His little brother, who just turned 7, I've been babysitting their son since he was 1. So we have a nice little dynamic. Yeah, he calls me nice. So the person I was dating at the time that I was getting interested in this stuff, we were watching Ghost Adventures.
Okay.
And I remember they were doing a lot of places that were in Southern California before and after. And so we set out and we went to the Queen Mary and a couple other places, Glen Tavern Inn. and I was hooked, and I was like, this is really something. And then I haven't looked back. I moved back to the East Coast in 2014, where I'm from, New Jersey, and I looked for a team to be a part of, and then I've been a part of a few here, and now my girlfriend Lourdes Gonzalez and I are part of a duo that we go by Gonyak, which is Gonzalez, and Yakovetti. It works better. We tried Yakgon, but it sounds like a bug repellent, so we went the other way. Yak. And so now we do audio. Our primary focus is audio. We do what's called direct radio voice, which we can get into. It's a precursor to sweeping radios, ghost boxes, Frank's box from Europe. And so now we have the audio specificity, and we love so many people in this field. We get invited to things. We invite people to things, and we work with a lot of other different teams all over that are close enough or that we can get to. Right. And we found that's our happy place is to be a duo who gets to work with all the other cool people we want to. And there's a chapter in the book too called "Go Team." No, really, right. Go. It's not working. And that's how it should be read, because that's how I meant it. Because we've had experiences with being parts of teams that tell you can't do this, you can't be with that, don't talk to those people, I don't like them. Right. What are you doing with him? And I'm like, listen, I didn't see the paycheck in this, so I don't know why there's regulations involved.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Once you start hearing censorship like that, it makes you wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so you mentioned that you were originally from New Jersey. So I take it that you went through grammar school and high school and all your schooling in New Jersey?
Yep. I went to K through 5, high school, junior high, everything, college, all in New Jersey. I moved out to California in 2000. And almost 14 years to the month and day, moved back in 2014. My son's mom thought that for him and I, it would be better to be closer to where family is, because we didn't have any family out there other than us. Right. I may not have moved back if it wasn't for that decision, but it did work out well. I get to spend time with my dad more now. My mom passed in January 2019, so I would have lost even more time with her had I not come back.
Right, sure.
So it worked out.
That's good. That's good. Now you mentioned something about you almost sold a screenplay while you were out in California. I only mention that because that's how I started writing. I wrote screenplays, and I can tell you, there's nothing tougher than the competition in Hollywood on screenplays. It's almost unless you have a number one bestseller. I mean, a number one New York Times bestseller. There's very few people that are going to look at anything you converted into a screenplay, because it's just so competitive out there. They just have thousands of screenplays out there.
And that's why they do retreads of stuff that's already been made too, because they already know that there's an audience built into it.
Right.
Yeah, I wrote original stuff. It was high concept stuff. Just as an example, the Dimension Films passed on the one because they had just at that time around the year 2000 had taken a bath on whatever rendition of Godzilla came out around that time.
Right. Right.
And they were like, we can't spend money on high concept right now. They wouldn't do it. They liked it.
Right.
I had an in with a few different places like that. And then, it became difficult. I had a couple of TV projects also. The movie Eddie and the Cruisers. I had the TV rights for that for 3.5, almost 4 years with another friend of mine out in LA. And we had meetings with John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band, who did the music. Michael Pare, who played Eddie in the movie.
Right.
We had meetings with him. We had a deal very close, and then one party jumps on, another executive leaves where he is, and then deal falls apart.
Right.
So yeah, it's tricky. I did have a friend of mine a couple years back talk to another comedian at the Comedy Store in Hollywood, and the guy he talked to was working as a reader for a studio, and the readers are the people who look at the screenplays first, and if they like them, they'll pass them up the ladder.
Right.
And the reader mentioned the title, and my friend goes, "Wait a minute, that sounds like my friend's script." And he goes, "Oh yeah." He goes, "They use that one as an example of how to write a solid screenplay." So nobody bought it and nobody made it.
No, but it was made right. It was written right.
It's a teaching tool, apparently, or at least it was.
Yeah, well, that's a compliment to you. So
it is. It is. It's a compliment with no dollar signs, but it's a compliment.
So I have a quick question. What got you involved on the technology side? I mean, were you always into electronics? Were you always into audio? I mean, obviously coming from the entertainment industry, you obviously have a little bit of experience with audio, but what really got you hooked on the audio side of the paranormal?
That's a really, really good question because for one, while I do have a propensity towards tech to a certain degree, um, as an ITC person goes, I may be less tech than a lot of the other people who are, let's say, the ghost box builders, because I'm also really big, like I was mentioning, on the consciousness and philosophy side of it. And I think that there's that certain there's a Rupert Sheldrake from the former SPR member who talks about morphic resonance and the collective consciousness and everything that's ever been and lived, all kind of bound by this one energy kind of. Right. And so I'm big on that also. And I've seen some of the best ITC results ever that I've ever seen by a gentleman in Italy named Marcello Bacci with a vacuum tube radio doing direct radio voice, which is what we now do. So when you look at that, I do believe that there's a place and a role for tech and advancement and usage of it.
Right.
But it does make you wonder that, with all the stuff that we have with lasers and UV and everything else, that some of the best communication, like you and I are talking now, happened in a little studio in Italy with a guy using a vacuum tube radio. So it makes you think about what really is what's the genesis, what's the foundation for the contact that we're even able to make. I am tech minded to a degree. I do like the audio side of paranormal stuff, because it's what a lot of people on the research side will call PPO. It's a permanent paranormal object. It lends itself to examination and being shared over and over and over. You can do a voice print. You can check it on a spectrograph. You can show it to other people. You can display it at a presentation. Right. In comparison to, let's say, and we've had these experiences, a lot of us, you go somewhere to investigate and something tugs on your belt and almost pulls you over and there's nobody there. There's no question if that's what happened to you, that's what happened to you. I don't deny or decline, believing that people have those experiences. The problem is, and this is to tie back to the comedy, it's similar to the, telling somebody something funny that happened at the office. And you go, oh, well, you had to be there. They weren't. Yeah. They weren't there. Yeah. They weren't there. So it's that same kind of thing. So it's not that it didn't happen, but it's really hard to look at it again. And, with the expectations of repeatability, with certain phenomena to show that it's authentic, the fact that you can repeat it and listen to it over and over again. And if you Keith, you've had this happen, when you get something on EVP or on a box or whatever that speaks and directly responds, I don't care how many times you play that over again, you're like, holy caca, what was that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you guys get a lot of that on your show. A lot of that.
It's gotten good. Yeah. So Chris Allgood and Audra Keeler are both sensitives. They're both, I don't know if they even realize how talented they are on the side of EVP. The late and unfortunately not tranquil couple of Debbie and Mark Constantino were known for being phenomenal with EVP. I worked with Debbie once or twice when I lived in LA on a couple of events that she was at. And it was the real deal. And I think Chris and Audra have a propensity to be like that. They're really, really good with picking the EVPs up. They hear even disembodied voices on lower decibel levels that most people with them aren't hearing. Mm-hmm. Tony and Cherie are similar to Lourdes and I. They're a little bit more tech, definitely more on the instrumental transcommunication or the ITC side of it. Tony's brilliant. There's a guy, if you want to hear someone who speaks well and knows what he's talking about and has evidence, he's fantastic. I consider myself fortunate to be working with him now, which is actually, I'll get into something where that's kind of going. And he's built ghost boxes and he's been an ITC guy forever and he gets phenomenal stuff. And so what Lourdes and I have been doing for 3 years or so, when I mentioned the gentleman in Italy, Marcello Bacci, is called direct radio voice. It's literally an empty, barren white noise frequency. And you connect with that. And then we have done different things along the way where we run it through those portal boxes with a little reverb and noise control. I've done it running that and a tone generator, and even mixing it in with other sounds through a mixing board to do what's called a heterodyning, taking like a long wave and an UHF frequency audio and taking two unique frequencies and creating the sum and difference of those two by making one unique one. all different renditions of trying to work with sound and just a pure white noise foundation of different blends or purities to try to see if we can improve on what it is we're getting and doing. And then so flash forward, and this is where I've gotten Tony involved now, because we did a couple live shows where I asked for his wife's name, and it said Shri Rathman. It said she's happy. It said Chris Allgood's tagline, "Stay haunted." When I asked, doing direct radio voice. And so we're running it through a studio software and a couple other components that look for intelligibility and voice, where there are none. So you can't run a ghost box or something, let's say, through this, because you can't put in vocals, even fragmented, and then look to pull them out.
Right.
Yeah.
And so going back to when I said the best I've ever seen in real-time talk was with the gentleman with the vacuum tube radio. So we're taking that method, and when we're adding a little bit of modern tech to it with the software, and which, if you look at it this way, a lot of people, when they do EVP or even ghost box stuff, they record sessions, right? That's 101. You record it.
Yep.
And then they're using filtration and certain things to try to make it intelligible or pull the words out more in post-production when they review. What we're doing is we're trying in real time to stream and filter. And now the latest thing I've been doing is trying to actually slow down the live play in the moment, because I'm finding that I had a piece of evidence where it said on, and I was like, I heard the word on. I went, it's on. When I slowed it down to 50% speed, I had just asked before that, do you know who I am? It said Ron. So on was Ron. Wow. Then it said, Ron, it's Mom, it's Lucy, I'm connecting, which is my mother and her mother.
Wow. Oh, wow. Wow.
Enunciated, pronounced, emphasized the way I am talking now, and I didn't hear it because it came through like that. And then, without even knowing that came through, I asked, because this was at an investigation somewhere in Vernon, New Jersey, that was built in the 1780s, I think. I was setting up the direct radio voice. I wasn't even running a session with everybody yet. But I record all the time now because I've made that mistake before.
I think we all have.
And so I'm just setting it up and I'm recording. So that's why I thought when it said on, I was like, it's on. And then I heard that whole thing, Ron, it's Mom, it's Lucy, I'm connecting. And then without even hearing that, I asked instinctively, I was like, is my mother going to be with me tonight? And then the voice goes, yes, you're lucky. Huh. I didn't hear any of that. And so what I thought to me was, all right, when I slowed it down, I heard it. So then what's the fusion of concepts that we're looking at here? Slow down, it's audible. In the moment, it's not.
Right.
Slow it down in the moment. And so that's what we're working on doing. And I'm working with Tony on that. I got Tony hooked on direct radio voice. He's doing sittings now all the time as well, because he's never seen anything like it. I got into it because I had never seen anything like it. The About the Author for my book was written by Dr. Anabela Cardoso, she was the first female diplomat to the country of Portugal. She's in Spain now. She sat with Marcello Bacci. She sat with Dr. Ernst Sinkowski, who so many people who do ITC may or may not know. He's the guy who came up with the term ITC, instrumental transcommunication. He's a physics professor in Germany. So she sat with all those people, and so she did the About the Author for me on this, which was huge, because if it was not for her books and influence, I would not be doing this DRV stuff today.
Right. Yeah, that's one. It's amazing, really, and that's certainly the right team to have in place. Mm-hmm. People like that know all these other people that are so qualified to do these things. It's amazing, it really is. I want to get back to the idea of your book, because that's what the show's about, but we will have time to discuss more of your experiences in the paranormal field, and I'm sure Keith's got some questions in that. But I want to get to the book first. Sure. Because a lot of the audience are very passionate readers. I'm sure a lot of them are into paranormal too, but I just like to give you a chance to talk about it. The book we're speaking about is called Paranormally Speaking, Knowingly Talking to the Unknown. I was going to do a brief synopsis, but I'd rather you do it, and you go where you want with it.
Well, I mean, the book speaks to. Eventually, it gets to the direct radio voice and the repeatable audio phenomenon that I got hooked on. That I mentioned how you can just keep replaying it and sharing it and blah blah blah. It gives a little bit of my backstory about how I started, when I was in the process of getting separated and divorced out in California.
Right.
Then I moved back east, and I looked to continue it here. I put a couple of things in here that I thought were important as far as, this field coming out of the negative halo that it carried for so long of being completely taboo. I mean, it's not out of the woods yet, but at the same time, through TV and media and stuff, it's a lot more mainstream than it used to be. And so I felt like there were some subjects that are part of the field in some ways plaguing it. And they're not in a lot of the books that most of us would pick up, which are brilliant books, but because of these things were not part of the sociology of the time, I guess. They weren't part of the societal outreach at the time because it was really niche and really underground compared to what it is now.
Right.
So I have a chapter in here about parasocial media and behavior. There's interacting with people online, sharing evidence, commenting on evidence, how to react when people, don't embrace and just endorse everything you do. I'm a big believer of you hold yourself to your own standard. If somebody acts like an ass, you can meet them and also be an ass and maybe in some ways be a bigger one and then make what they did not look as bad by outshining them.
Sure.
Or you can hold yourself to a standard, which is what I believe. I think too many people find social media, especially in a public profile setting, outwardly therapeutic. I mean, it's good to share and get things off your chest. But if everything that goes down your wall on a given social media is whining and complaining about this person and that person, and then you do it anonymously too, which, look, I'm no self-ascribed tough guy here, but if you're going to call someone out, either have the stones to do it or message them directly with the hopes of rectifying it. But anonymously calling people out, to me, is the best possible way to show that you have zero testicles and no will to find them.
Yeah,
that's true.
It's just not. And it's not a good look. I mean, it's not, you don't have to agree with what everybody does. People think, oh, if I call somebody out, if I point this out, I'm helping the field. No, what you're doing perceptibly to the people in the field and out is you're peeing in the same community pool that you're in.
Right.
You're in this.
Yep.
And that dissension does not look good for anybody. So there's ways to address things and try to speak to them or to the people directly. But so I have a chapter on that. I think that was important. The go team, really no go. It's not working out. That chapter came from both personal experiences, and I don't name anybody in it because I'm not speaking to a specific instance, but to the dynamic of it. It is a very polygamous, non-sexual relationship thing you do where you are in bed with several people on a team that some of which you gel with and some of which you may not, similar to like an office where some people require some coping skills and for some people you require coping skills.
Right.
And you have to be aware of that too. And people have their roles and stuff. And so I spoke to that a little bit. Hunting a couple, Lourdes and I do it. We're boyfriend and girlfriend. A lot of husbands and wives do it. We know people whose other half is not involved, and then that has an effect on the dynamics of the relationship because of the time and the money which both go into this.
Yes, it does.
Especially if you investigate, you're getting gear, you're paying for locations. That's time and money that is not towards a shared venture.
Right.
When your other half is not involved. And so that can complicate things. Some people are easier going and they have a relationship where it doesn't matter and it works. But I felt like that was something different to speak to that wasn't really spoken about before. I named a couple of places that were my favorite haunts. I talk about a couple of things that have to do with skepticism and science. Again, to kind of go to the terminology stuff, I don't like when people go, one day science is going to accept and one day science is not one guy.
Right.
So we need to stop in the field referring to science like it's one person, right? You don't go to school and think sex ed is one dude getting all the action. And if you do, you want to meet him for sure.
Right.
Something right.
I definitely want to meet that guy. Yeah.
I made my son laugh. And you think I'm smart, this guy, holy crap. So it bothers me when people keep going, one day science is not one guy.
Right.
So science already accepts it and science also doesn't accept it. For one, Pseudoscience. Also, I hate, actually, pseudoscience is going to be in the next book. The second book has a chapter on that. Don't call it pseudoscience thing, because the definition of that is to be mistakenly identified with the methodology and or participation of science. The guy who came up with ITC is a physicist. Game over.
Right.
There's no longer a mistaken identity. It's one guy and it's done. Right?
Yeah.
You can't be a vegetarian and eat hot dogs on Sundays.
No, doesn't work that way. Yeah.
One time undoing is what it takes. That's it.
Right.
I talk about skeptics and skepticism. Skepticism is huge. It's important. We need to have discernment, no question. But the use of the term skeptic in the field a lot now refers to the person who is debunking and going after everything because they don't believe in the paranormal. That's not a skeptic. You know what that is? It's a believer. It's just a believer in a different paradigm. But they got the term skeptic because believers associated with the people who think everything's a ghost. And societally and sociologically, there's a brighter connotation to the word skeptic that has an educated, well-spoken, well-to-do kind of lofty title to it, but it is not accurate. But if you think everything is or isn't, that's a belief system. And they're opposing paradigms, but they're both believers. So I'll say cynic, but I won't call those people skeptics. I will call them believers, and I will call them cynics, just to kind of maybe bridge the gap. But those are things I get into a little bit that I don't really hear people talking about. The difference between science and scientism. Science is a method of inquiry. It's not an ideology. When we hear about what we do and how it fits into the Newtonian materialist accepted view of science, that's not science. Science will examine and go over and over and over again until it finds absolution, revisit it, bounce it off peers. That, by definition, is how science works. To say that it doesn't fit, there's no place for this. It doesn't make sense, doesn't add up. So no, this is not scientifically proven. That's scientism. That's an ideology that is not how science works, and that's more of a cultish mindset, which is more prevalent in people who tout the flag of science, especially in opposition to all things paranormal. So that's not how that works either.
Well, I mean, if you go back to your definition of science, the scientific method comes into play. You're trying to prove a hypothesis, right? So you're either going to prove it or disprove it in the end. But I think people who get into this field, I think we're all skeptics getting into the field. That's why we do the investigating, because we're trying to prove a hypothesis. And the big hypothesis is there life after death? Is there something else? And I just think, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe just because I consider myself a skeptic, but I think everybody who goes into this field is somewhat of a skeptic. That we're out there investigating to try to prove our own proof to ourselves.
I agree with you. I guess the difference for me is that I frame it as a characteristic, not as an identity.
Right.
I bring skepticism, but I wouldn't brand myself a skeptic for reasons that I just explained.
Right.
Because I feel like it comes with certain connotations that people associate with it. So they think, so you don't buy into any of this stuff.
You're right.
No, but I am probably, even the people who know me in the field, probably more skeptical about stuff being paranormal than they even realize, because I'm so on the other soapbox of stuff that I do believe or find. But yeah, I think to me, that's like, I don't go in. I would call myself, people go, are you a skeptical or a believer, when I was doing ghost hunting stuff, and I would say I'm an investigator. I don't go in with any agenda. Whatever the place yields, it does, and then I'll look at that to see whether or not I think it's got paranormal effect written all over it or not. But yeah, I mean, I think the thing for me is that the role of the skeptic has become, in some instances, like the heel in professional wrestling. It's looking to disprove and debunk. And the thing is that there are instances when it will. There are instances when skepticism will rule stuff out. Mm-hmm. And that's good. And the people who are that hyper skeptical can teach something to the people who are not, who are too gung ho to buy into everything being, spooktastic. And that's the wrong side of the equation. Balance and discernment is really difficult, but I think it's the goal. We all have bias. It's very hard to get rid of. That was one of the early EVP and ITC researchers, Konstantin Radovich, said that one of the biggest problems with assessment of what we do is that we are part of it.
That's kind of what I was about to say before, that we're talking about people who are skeptics or people who find it hard to believe what you're doing. just the ordinary. I'm speaking about ordinary people now. I think any challenge that comes with what you do is good for you, because, like you just said, sometimes they can prove you wrong, and that's okay too. But most of the time, something positive is going to come out of your discussion with these people, unless they're totally blind. They're going to listen to your side, and between what you share with them and they share with you, I think you usually get stronger from it. I really do.
No, I agree with that. I think that's a really healthy mindset to have. I mean, a lot of times it depends on the severity of the bias you're up against. I always say that there are some people that if Bigfoot handed them their car keys, they wouldn't believe in them. They'd be looking for the zippers. Come on, who's in there?
Right.
Because they are so stuck in their ways. The other thing too with that is when you have these discussions with the public and you're like people who are not in the field, people have preconceived notions and beliefs that are not founded in empirical experience. And so they'll be like, oh, please tell me you don't believe in this ghost stuff like that. I'm like, well, first of all, define ghosts. You need more time? Not a problem. How many experiments have you run? How many pieces of equipment do you own? And how often have you used those? None? Why are we talking? That's part of what it is too, is that there's and this I think is a little bit born of the social media and the popularity of it now, where people are very comfortable to be confrontational and all that stuff in levels that they're not able to substantiate. I forget exactly where I was going with this. It's a false sense of security and confidence in what they're talking about that comes from what is an inherited, whether it's through family or education, or whatever it is, it's an inherited belief system that they have. They've done almost, if any, experiments or investigations or research on any of this stuff, and they're just telling you, I don't believe in it, it's not, whatever. And so to me, it's like if I said, I'm going to give a dissertation today, please buy tickets. I'm going to be speaking on the plight of a black woman in the United States over 100 years. You'd be like, well, hold on. You're not a woman. You're not African-American. You haven't been around for 100 years. Where's the experience to back this up?
Right.
That's my point.
Yep.
It's a good point. It's a very good point.
So it's in those situations, the way to go to your healthy mindset, which I love, those are opportunities for us to educate and inform them. And then if they still hold the opinion they hold, then so be it, because people are allowed to think things through and have different opinions than us. They're not to be shunned for that, but at least you give them an opportunity to have an educated decision.
Right.
An informed decision about it. Now, if somebody like Keith says something and he and I have a difference of opinion, I respect his thought regardless, because I know he's educated and he's experienced and he's been there.
Right.
Someone who hasn't done what he's done, then there's a lot of gaps to be filled, and you wonder this level of support and confidence. How did it build up to that point with nothing to back it up?
Right.
Yep. I agree with that. Yeah.
Yep.
It would be like me coming after you, because I'm certainly not qualified to speak about paranormal in any stretch of the imagination, other than what I see you guys do and what Keith and his people do. But so if you're using a good example of me, if I was to come to you and challenge you on stupid things and stupid questions, you would say, what's the credibility here? What's the, where are you getting all of this from? Is it from a family belief? Is it from something, you just disregarded from the time you were old enough to understand? What is driving you to be so negative about accepting the possibilities, of paranormal events happening? And so that's kind of what you're saying. Have some credibility if you're going to challenge me.
Well, have some credibility if you're going to speak to something. You can challenge it if you're coming from a place of knowledge and education. I don't really understand this stuff, but you seem to know it. I don't believe in these things. I don't think, how is that possible that that's real? And then that's different. You can challenge me all day with that kind of stuff. And I am completely honest that I both don't know everything. And what I know now, I might find out to be wrong tomorrow. That's part of the ebb and flow of what's going on. And that's one of the things I find interesting about the field as a collective compared to the notion of this unified one guy who is science thing, is because in science you have the definitions or the theories and the hypotheses, which are like definitions. They can be fluid and it can, and obviously can change. But if you look at paranormal evidence across the country, across the globe, with different people of different nationalities and races and genders and everything, the characteristics of their audio and visual evidence are identical. The characteristics wherever they are, and it's just my opinion. If you have continuity of evidence, you have reliability of evidence, and continuity of data, you have stability and reliability of data. And I think that's more of the momentum that paranormal research has from the field than it does from the lab. And there's also an inherent thing that for science to take something out of context and bring it back to examine it somewhere. And I think in certain instances, especially in the paranormal, when you take something out of the environment to review it, you're removing the context and the value it had by bringing it somewhere else to examine it. Some things you have to be able to do where it happens, and I don't think that's a unfair thing to ask, especially considering that, sociology, anthropology, astronomy, these are all field-based sciences. No one's bringing planets into the lab to examine them, but they're okay with doing.
Yep, that's a good point. I want to get back to your book again, though.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that you're in the process of completing your second book.
I am.
You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. The second book, and they mentioned the title of it, I think in this one, in the back, where it's "Thanks you for reading." Oh, actually, another thing I will mention. So the second book is called ITC Technomancy, which is the magical world of electronic spirit communication. This first book, not only the endorsement from Dr. Annabelle Cordosa, which is the most humbling thing for me because she is the reason why I'm doing this. Also, an ITC legend from the States, Mark Macy, from out in Colorado, who's brilliant, whose body of work surpasses what most of us could hope for in a career lifetime of doing paranormal research. He also gave me a contribution for it at the tail end of. This is what I wanted to mention too about the whole being part of a community thing. Sure. The entire Chapter 23 is elite operators and builders are sharing advice for aspiring ITC people. I thought it's one thing to say you're part of a community and say we need to support each other, but it's another thing to do it.
Do it.
Yeah. So in my little 15 minutes of literary fame here, I took an entire chapter and I had 15 or so people who were ghost box builders or ITC people give me a paragraph or more that they felt comfortable with to give advice to people who want to do ITC stuff but never done it, a little guidance. Wow, and so awesome. I took my spotlight and I widened it to include other people because that's the only way we move the ball is together. Look at just what with the direct radio, what happened with Tony and I. He's been doing ghost box stuff forever. He's been successful, to say the least. But when we did the live show and he saw what came through on direct radio, he's like, all right, you got to show me how you do this. And I set him up. And he's so talented and he's such a good soul. He's been able to replicate results comparable to what I'm doing 3.5 years in his first couple of weeks doing it, because he's already got a foundation and he knows what he's doing. So that's to me part of functioning successfully in the community is not, you can't be all about me and then go, why is nobody else supporting me? Right. There's tons of brilliant people who are talented out there doing what I do. And I'm happy to listen to and learn from.
Well, this is a good point to bring up, because that's the way I feel about my show, Bios to Books. It's not about me. It's not about my books. It's about new authors, self-published authors like yourself that have something to share with the reading public, and then you get the same exposure as yourself. Those people who have agents and they have their own publishing company supporting them. It's a lot harder from the other end to try to get that done. So that's what this is all about: working with other people who share the same interests and the same talents that you do, and trying to get that exposure out there and share information like we're doing right now with what you do so well. So what you're saying, I agree with 100%.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah. And just for the record too, because not for me, but because I wouldn't want to take credit away from anybody. This actually is not self-published. The publishing company is called Beyond the Fray. They've published books by at least one by Dave Schrader, a couple of Kenny Irish crypto-punkologist, Ken Gerhardt, who's also a crypto guy. Right. So they're a really good publishing company. I sent them the manuscript. They wanted it. I told them I was working on a second book. They sent me a second contract before the first book even came out.
Good.
Because they wanted it. So they do a really good job. The cover art, the people they have employed there doing these things are fantastic. They're really talented people. So,
what I was referring to, I wasn't saying necessarily that.
Right.
I guess I did say you were self-published. That's my mistake. But what I was referring to is competing with the really large publishing houses like Simon and Schuster and those kind of things. I mean, it's difficult. So even though you have a great publishing company, which is good, really good for you, you're still going to have to market it a little bit more difficult, in a little more difficult manner than the people that are getting everything done for them. That's my point. And whether you are self-published or you're a new writer, whatever it is, you still need the exposure, no matter what it is. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're here. That was the only point I was trying. That's why we're here, to give you a chance to talk about your book and where you're going with your writing, projects.
No, I appreciate that. I actually would be happy to refer a friend of mine, Richard Michelle, has got 2 books already out. And he originally had self-published, and then he saw what Beyond the Fray Publishing was doing with me, and he was really impressed. So I referred him, and they re-released both of his books with better cover art. And
there you go.
So he would be a great guest too. He's a New Jersey guy. He gets some really good locations. The place I got my mother and grandmother vocal evidence was a location in Vernon, New Jersey. He set up. Mm-hmm. So for future guests, if you're looking for people that maybe you've not talked to before with books, he from the Paranormal, he'd be a good one.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could have him email RCJ Productions, Keith, and they could talk about it and see if they can, set something up.
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah. I'm always interested in helping out writers, so I don't have a problem with that.
Well, that's very kind of you. And I appreciate the opportunity to do this, because what you're saying is completely true. Even with the backing of them, which helps, I'm still, trying to peddle them and push them and make people aware. I'm not a big name author by any means. Right. So hopefully this succeeds. And then I know that some of the personal appearances, now that the world has opened up a little bit more again, helps too. I lectured at the Rochester Parafest, and I had sold 1 or 2 books before that. And then I sold like 8 more as soon as I was done speaking, because people came over to get them after I talked. So then that's another avenue too, is to have them on hand. And
sure, and signing events too, like you're going to.
Right.
These all help you. In fact, I'm going to one. When am I going to that?
May 14th is the Ghost to Glow Paracon. We're going up there.
Yeah, so I'm going to do some signing up there.
I think the Rathmans are going to that.
Yeah, yep, they're speaking there. Yep.
So you see, they're speaking, and so the direct radio voice methodology that I was talking about, that I've been doing for the last 3.5 years, that now Tony is like hook, line, and sinker on.
Yeah.
You may see it. You may see it enacted there, because from what I understand, I think he's gonna bring it. He's so good at what he does. So I was telling him everything. I bought it when I did the New Jersey Para Unity Expo in a year ago. I ran an ITC exhibit, and so instead of just having people come by and look at my stuff and go, "This is my equipment. Here's a video of stuff I got," I thought, let me do it interactive. They put me in a separate room off the main area.
Right.
So I ran direct radio voice intermittently live.
That's cool.
Throughout the day, and people came in with their phones and they were recording evidence. They were asking questions and getting answers, and like the whole room goes, "Whoa!" And they got it on the recorders. And so
that's cool.
I bought a sound bar so I could do that. And so Tony just got a sound bar, I think, to do that, because it makes the sound fuller and it pushes it out more so that everybody in the environment who can hear it hears it. And we just did, well, we were talking before the show, we had done the Shanley Hotel a couple weeks back, and we Sam Baltrusis, Johnny Zaffis, Rich from New Jersey Paranormal Project, Robert and Sandra Bandoff from Barefoot. It was like a summit. It was so many cool people, and we ran direct radio voice like a digital seance thing. And Sam Baltrusis was blown away. We're bringing it to the Mass Paracon now because of that.
Right.
And Johnny Zaffis, who is an amazing guy, he's brilliant. He's a demonologist. He's a haunted collector. He's been around for a long time. He looked at us and he was going to people. He was like, there was a female coming through talking to him. And he was like, are you hearing this? Are you guys hearing this? He was wigging out. And he goes, and he looked at me, he goes, in my whole career, I have never heard anything like this. And my friend kept going, you freaked out a demonologist. You freaked out. I was like, it wasn't me. This is the method that I believed in 3.5 years ago when I sat in front of white noise. And it works. So he flipped out. So just to give you an idea, ITC wise, to give you a little something techie, the ghost boxes and spirit boxes that scan through broadcast frequencies to get the little allophones, little fragments of sound, supposedly manipulated for making speech, because spirit energy doesn't have a larynx and vocal cords. So we were just with New Jersey Paranormal a couple weeks ago in a mine in New Jersey called Sterling Mine. It goes 2 Empire State Buildings deep, and we weren't that far down.
Oh, wow.
But it is the place where cell phones and ghost boxes and their signals go to die.
Right.
There is nothing. I actually had to hotspot something on my phone to authenticate a service I use on my computer before I went into the mine. I couldn't even go into the door of the mine and get signal.
That's crazy.
So one guy tried an experiment running a spirit box sweeping by the front door, transmitting through an FM transmitter down the corridor to be received by another spirit box not sweeping, to give them time to maybe manipulate as it goes through the corridor with the echo, which was brilliant. Nothing would come through. We walked all the way up to the front door where the sweeping box was with the silent one. Right. Nothing. We're in the depths of the mine. Not all the way down by any means, which is a couple levels down. No, nothing, no signal. And I ran direct radio voice on a shortwave frequency through the software and out the sound bar, and we clear as day I wanted them to say the name of John Ruggiero, who's the guy who runs New Jersey Paranormal. And it says very clearly Johnny Zathis.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Not to mention some other expletives that came through but there's no radio, there's no signal, there's no broadcast. So to me, that was a huge proving grounds. We actually were going to run it in a room closer to the front. And then Rich Michelle from New Jersey Paranormal Project goes, no, let's do this down in the mine.
Wow.
Because then you'll prove that there is an impossibility of this being any kind of radio signal or bleed through that's coming through. That timing and relevance should already stomp out when you get a response. Right. But when there is no possible, the only thing you can look at for an explanation is we're looking at this, and this is something I've been discussing with Tony a lot, that I think that possibly the wave function of light, the wave function of photons, could be involved with something coming into the environment undetected, not needing radio signal to do that on a quantum level, which is a possibility because light has wave functionality. And when it interacts with something, it collapses and then it becomes particle. Or the other thing that's theorized we're looking at is the whole concept of the God particle boson. That permeates everything. It supposedly can carry messages. There's not enough known about it to my knowledge, or at least I don't know enough about it to plug it into some kind of theory. I'm still pretty big on the possibility of light. One of the things was that message I told you from the place in Vernon when it said, Ron, it's Mom, it's Lucy, I'm connecting. That came in really fast. That's one of the reasons that light through like Verizon, they use Fios. That's data on glass, because you don't have a lot of the negatives you get with vibration and heat from coax and metal. Right. And the speed transfers are vast. They're greater.
Yeah.
So that makes me think that if something came in, no human being can, the vocal tract cannot replicate the clarity and pronounced words like this of that recording at a speed that was so fast that I couldn't hear it in the moment.
Right.
There you can find an auctioneer on cocaine. He can't do it. It's impossible. And when I slowed it down to 50% speed, it sounded like I'm talking right now. And that's what made me think that this is a transfer of data from another continuum or wherever it's coming from. And that data is coming in with complete clarity, which means at least at its origin had to be intelligible, even as a thought form. Right, when it got to me, it was way too fast for my ear or my mental acuity to process it and even acknowledge it. It was undetected to me until I reviewed the recording.
That's fascinating, actually.
Brian, I could listen to you all day, but I have some questions I got to get to.
I told you I'm chatty.
That's all right. Listen, I could listen to you talk all day.
I love you guys. Go ahead.
But so anyway, I have some questions, and then there's some questions that the audience usually like to know about the authors themselves and what their opinions are on writing and things like that. So they're very basic questions, but I'm curious about some of your answers.
Yeah.
If you had to choose any paranormal investigation that that won you over to the spirit world, which one would it be?
That's a really good question. A couple of things come to mind. I would probably, the best answer to that, maybe say it on a location basis. David Omen's house, the Omen House in Beverly Hills, is the most consistently active place I've ever been. I was still fairly new the first time I went to his house. I've been there a few times, and a bunch of us watched a picture frame with a movie poster with glass, and the frame was heavy. It was not light. Come off the wall in slow motion by itself, one hook at a time. I have no explanation for that. I watched it. 7 other people watched it. I would say that house, and maybe even that night, because that was one of those moments of sobriety when you hear about all this different sightings and recordings and different stuff that people say they get and do. But no matter how prepared or educated you think you are, when something like that happens, you literally freeze up and you're like, what? So I would say, as far as investigation, it would probably be the first time I went to that house. That was that. And the first time I did the Glen Tavern Inn with Chad Lindbergh, which I got to tell Chad the Chad story at the Vegas Para-Unity Expo we went to in December, because he was using the spirit box. I had never seen it used before at the time. And it said, everybody introduced themselves, and he was the last one, and he said his name, and it goes like 30 seconds, not even 25 seconds later, it goes, I know Chad. And I was like, what is that?
Wow.
What is that? And so that was probably the other one. I would say that one too, because when I realized real-time contact, even in its brevity, was possible, that freaked me out. I was like, that's awesome.
That's cool.
Now, what about an investigation? Any investigation would have the most emotional impact on you? I have a feeling I know what you might say on this one, but I'm just curious.
These are really good questions. Emotional impact. So it's interesting because I can answer this from an investigation, like out in the field point of view, or from when we started doing direct radio, we started doing what's called like a medium does. We do sittings. We would do recordings every week, literally for 2.5 years without missing a week, holiday or not, at least once. And when the world shut down, we started doing even more because we couldn't go anywhere. I would say one of the, as far as experiences like that goes, that was most emotional was I've gotten, I can never know beyond a shadow of a doubt, but you can get to a certain point when you, your own comfort level for your own edification, assign a level of belief that you're comfortable expressing. So I had a couple of things come through that I was pretty convinced, especially earlier on, were related to or from my mother. Specific in either what they said or what they spoke to. And that was probably emotionally a big thing to me too. I talk about it in actually in the dedication in this book, where that was for the last 15 years of her life, the one thing she wanted more than anything was to hear from me more. And I reached out. It wasn't like I didn't call her, but she, mom's all the time.
Yeah.
And then you could never call them too much. That's for sure.
And now that she's gone, I wish I had done better. I wish I could have, stepped up a little bit more. And I try to reach her all the time with ways like this. And so when that thing from Vernon came to mom, it's Lucy, which is her mother, and calling me Ronnie, which my grandmother did, and almost nobody else. I think one other aunt who just passed used to. I would say that the Vernon one with that clip, because it was my mother and her mother's name coming through.
That's what I thought you were going to say. That's exactly what I thought you were going to say. And
then one of the ones I got at home one time when I just ran the direct radio, just the boombox, not even with any of the computer software or anything like that. And I was in a recording that I went to go take a shower and let it run for 30 minutes. Lorda said, just let it run sometimes. And I came back and it said something. I asked how she was doing because she had a knee surgery that went bad, infection, and she couldn't walk. And so I asked how she was doing, and it was this whole message about nothing hurts now, the pain is gone. This whole
Right.
And I freaked me out because that was exactly what I asked for. And in 30 minutes or so of recording, that was the only vocal that was on the recording.
Wow.
Incredible.
Wow.
Incredible. Did you have one personal experience during your paranormal investigations that scared the bejesus out of you?
Yeah. Not rooted to a specific investigation, but it was kind of an unnerving experience. And I'm glad you brought it up because it's in the book.
There you go.
It's in
I
the
knew
chapter.
that.
I knew you did. It's in the chapter called "Attachments Are Us," I think, which is a play on the Toys R Us title.
That's great.
Yeah, attachments are us. I had an instance. I don't know if it was at a location, or if it manifested from there, or what happened. But from what I was told, I had two shaman in a group I used to be with. One of them sadly just passed from COVID over the last year and a half or so. And it was an emotional attachment thing. It had to do with the relationship I was in at the time, not with my ex or my divorce, which was never a problem. And so I didn't realize I had it for the first couple of weeks. And then the last week and a half, 2 weeks, I guess it built up enough steam, during which time I had gone to Omen House, which I don't think is to blame, but that place is like a B12 shot for spirits, I think, because the geomagnetic energy is insane. So I think it was able to start making itself known more. And that was kind of unnerving. I tell the stories in the book about how it unfolded when I first found out that there was even something going on. I know for some people who are scared of the ghosts and paranormal stuff, they might be like, whoa, and freaked out. And for people who don't even think this is plausible, what, an attachment, something follows you? Are you kidding me? That's fine too. I know what I experienced. And then when I went to the one shaman afterwards, when we figured out what it was and she did her ritualistic thing to get rid of it, a couple hours later, I felt a little bit better. And then after that, never a problem after that. And then the one shaman who not removed it, but the one that just passed away, she would check on me remotely from California from time to time. And she said, you've become so much more grounded spiritually and centered and stuff. So part of that experience may have been, with a silver lining, because it changed me. There's a story in the book I put in here about how when you see on the news, like when a surfer gets attacked by a shark and then they go back out there again, you're like, what are you, an idiot? Did you not learn? But exactly. I understood it now, because, and that's what I talk about is you can't have something take you out of your passion. If you quit because you're not passionate anymore, that's one thing. And so I had considered not doing this stuff anymore because that scared me to a little bit less discussed, a little bit less prevalent area of vulnerability that we have. And when it happened, I was like, maybe I need to not do this because I don't know if I can handle that. It was. But then that's when I looked at it and when I am not going to get bullied out of something.
Right. No, that's good. That's good. Now I have a couple of questions for you. We're kind of running out of time here, but I could talk to you all day. But
likewise, thank you.
But I do have a couple of questions from the audience that they usually like to ask writers when they come on the show.
Cool.
I'll
try to be brief.
Okay. The first question that they usually ask is, how much importance do you give to receiving Amazon reviews?
I would give it, I don't know, I give it a decent amount of importance. I've gotten 4, I think, reviews so far on the book. They're all really, really good. Someone's going to hate it at some point, and that's okay. I mean, that's the thing is, because I speak to things that have to do with science and stuff. I'm not a scientist, but you know what? You ask people what the weather's going to be, and they're not all meteorologists. So,
that's true.
Get a grip for a second here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I take it for what it's worth. I think some people will do that just because they need to get it off their chest. Some people are no matter what you do, they're going to find something to complain about. Some people are going to genuinely give you a nice review. I appreciate anybody who reads it, who buys it. I very much appreciate any of the reviews that are positive. The intent behind putting a book out was to do something positive, not just for self, but for others.
Sure.
And if somebody finds that after they're done with it, that the amount of time and money it costs them is so outlandish that they need to say something.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah,
if that's
yeah, no, that's a good point. That's kind of the way I feel. Like you said, you could expect somewhere, maybe not, but there is a good possibility you will get a negative review once in a while. It's part of the culture of writing reviews. There's always somebody that's looking to not to hurt you, but to be different, so to speak.
yeah, they're trying to
They
define themselves sometimes
right.
too.
They'll see 25 5-star reviews and they'll say, "There's no way this is a 5-star review. I'm going to give it a 2-star or 3-star, whatever." So you can expect that, but
Yeah, and
your answer is what I would say too.
Yeah, I look at these things too the same way I always looked at before I ever had a book. When I wanted to see a movie, or if I wanted to go to a restaurant, and then the review said, "Oh, terrible movie! It's not realistic." And well, of course not. It's the X-Men. It's not.
It's a movie.
Hello,
It's a
but
movie, right?
So I don't. I always took those things with a grain of salt and almost never paid attention to them. Like if I'm interested in something, I'll take the time to read it or watch it and enjoy it. And then if I don't, then I won't do it again.
Right.
Right.
But
Right.
I don't usually feel the propensity to go on there and go, "Oh, this is terrible. Don't watch it," because you might like it.
Right. Exactly. And you never know until you do watch it or until you do read it. It's what I always tell the audience, especially the authors who are in the audience, that the new authors, that this is the kind of business. And with your background, you could appreciate this more so. You have to be thick-skinned. You just can't. You gotta let this stuff roll off your back, because if you don't, you'll quit. You'll just walk away from it all, and that's the biggest mistake you can make. You know what you know what you can do. You know where your talents lie. Go for it, and don't let anybody stop you. Just keep going for it. That's my theory.
That's good advice. No, that's really good advice. There's no industry you can go into where you're going to please 100% of everybody. It's not realistic to think so.
Exactly. So, do you have any suggestions as to the best way to market a new book?
Social media is huge because it's opened up avenues that didn't previously exist. I mean, what we're doing right now, as was at one point unheard of. If you wanted to have a show called Bios to Books, you were trying to get even a cable network to run it locally. You had to get an office meeting with somebody that you could present on paper what the concept was, and then hope you explained it so that they got it, and then would produce it and put money behind it.
Right.
And now we all have green screens and lights and the ability to stream and broadcast.
Right.
And so now you create your product, and if it builds an audience, they come to you.
Right.
So the dynamic has changed. Same thing with books. It's no longer just based on foot traffic and shelf placement at a bookstore and who sees it, if it's on an end cap or if it's featured, or it's, if you have, and I'm grateful and blessed for everybody who comes to see me speak when I lecture, who asks me to speak, who has me on a show like this, that thinks I'm worth talking to and hearing what I have to say. I'm grateful for any of that. And those are all opportunities like what you gentlemen have been kind enough to give me today. That when I go to the Shanley and do a book signing and on Labor Day weekend, and those are your moments. The live events, if you're able to speak, and social media is huge. And if you're really good with, and comes back to the social media and behavior stuff that I have the chapter on. If you're good with your interaction with other people in the community, you have a marketing team that's already in place.
Mm-hmm.
You have other people who, because they like you and support what you do, and you've shown that to them, and it's mutual, who will go to bat for you and have you on a show, talk about it, tell other people about it. Then their coworkers or friends or family will buy it as well. That's also a side benefit to I have 15 of the best ITC people in the business who wrote something for this book.
Right.
That's 15 people who have a vested interest in this thing.
Absolutely.
Getting out there and doing well too. That's something I did for them that also benefits me if they put it out there. That's not why I did it, because it's too big of a piece to do that for a marketing purpose.
Right.
But yeah, I think the key things are personal appearances and social media And if you know how to function within that environment, your outreach and your friends list is only the first tier to that marketing plan. And then the people they're connected to, and that they're connected to, and that they're connected to, and then your outreach is a lot larger than you think.
Right. That's true. That's very true. That's a good point. I have one more question from the audience before we say goodbye. It's a question that always comes up, and I have trouble answering it because I don't usually experience it. But is there ever a time as an author you've experienced writer's block, and if so, how do you fix it?
Coffee. Coffee unblocks a lot of things, intestinal and intellectual. It's funny. I've not in the book sense yet. I mean, I'd written screenplays before where I'd had it happen more.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the only times I've experienced anything that was debilitating as far as writer's block usually came because there was something inspirational that got me off the ground. And if I didn't follow it through, when I went to revisit it, it wasn't there anymore, or at least not the same. And so now I'm trying to fuel a steam engine that needs X amount of power with a third of what I had when I was full steam ahead.
Right.
And I think that's been when I've experienced it the most. And more on the creative writing side, when I was doing film and TV stuff. The book, I actually started the book in 2019, and I had 35 pages, maybe 40 pages written. And then I got a new job and things got better. Because I was at the time, I was looking for work, and I was using my day to job hunt most of the day, write the book, and then go to the gym to keep mind and body healthy. And flash forward, I'm working and I'm busy and I'm starting to do stuff. And I looked at it, I went, all these people are at events, they're selling books, they're, author of this, author of that. And I was like, I'm interested in doing that. And then I started doing that, but then I stopped. So I picked it back up, and I literally would spend every lunch hour eating and writing, so that I guaranteed that I had writing time that was invested. Richard Estep has a book out called The Writer's Life, I think, or whatever.
Yes.
If I'm getting the title wrong.
No, I think that is the title.
Okay, it's fantastic. Sam Baltrusis bought me that book from Richard at the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash a year or so ago. And purposely because I was trying to decide if I was going to try to self-publish or go for a publisher, and a couple of different things. And Richard talks about chipping away at writing, even if it's just a couple of sentences. At least you did something. And so I adopted that plan even before I'd read that, and I would take lunch every day and just write and eat and write. And then I'll flash forward to today. I write, and then sometimes I have a smaller mobile kit for the radio, so I run direct radio voice at work on lunch. So some of the evidence that we've captured on our YouTube channel was from when I recorded stuff at lunchtime, where there's really not good signal either. But that would be my advice is reconnect with the reason you wanted to do to begin with. Maybe you saw a show or a movie, or you read something that made you think about something you've experienced or something you hope to experience or whatever it is. Reconnect with the seed wherever the passion was born from. Find that. If you can, and then a little bit of discipline. You have to make time. I decided that I wanted to have a book that I had started and then didn't finish, and I didn't want to be one of those don't finish projects people, which I've been before. Most of us have done that in some way.
Oh yeah.
So I dedicated a slot of time every day that I could allot to doing it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Well, I want to remind the audience, once again, the book that you do have out now, Paranormally Speaking, Knowingly Talking to the Unknown. It's available on Amazon.
It is.
And I'm sure other sites too as well.
And the cover art's fantastic, right? The artist that they have Beyond the Fray, he's really good.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's really good. It's
very cool.
And I recommend, knowing you and your team on Entity Voices, I recommend anybody that's into the paranormal at all, pick up your book and read it. I really do.
I second that.
I think it's a great book. It's a great field you're in. You're very talented, and I will read the entire book. I promise you.
I appreciate that very much. The kind words, the opportunity to be here on here and talk about it. I will tell you for the second book, it gets a little bit more into the philosophy and mindset of ITC contact that I have, a little bit more technical. I have a chapter. It's going to be a shorter chapter in the book that is the words of Tony Rathman, because I feel like for him, what Dr. Annabelle Cordosa did for me with direct radio voice and me passing it along to him was life-changing. He's blown away. He'll tell you when you see him by what it's doing. He can't believe the full sentence conversation stuff that's come out of it. So I gave him, in the next book, there will also be a chapter that's just from his words of experiencing it too. So that's something I think that would be cool for people to, because he has a lot of people who know him also, and he's a fantastic person.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Him and Sheree, the entire 6 people that co-host the show are wonderful people. I'm not just saying that. You're all great people.
We appreciate it.
You got anything to say to that?
Yeah, I'm gonna enhance that a little bit by saying that, the 6 of you are strong in your own teams. You know what I mean? As couples. But then the culmination of you just enhances Entity Voice. I mean, there's so much talent spread throughout your group, and I think that's what makes you guys so powerful. Is that it's just you're great people to begin with, so that's a huge plus. And then just what you guys bring to the team, the 6 of you, it makes you guys a great team. I think honestly an unstoppable team. I really think you guys have something very, very special. And I'm honored to be able to share that, with you guys whenever we have the opportunity. So yeah, I highly recommend everybody needs to go read the book, even if you have your doubts about paranormal. And I think your book here is a great precursor to your next book. So I think people who get involved with this book and find interest in it are going to love your second book. I think it's just going to really pique the interest for them. So yeah, I highly recommend going to read the book for sure.
I appreciate that too. Like I told you before, the Entity Voices team was Tony and Sheree, then Chris and Audra, and then we were guests. And then because we were filling in, they liked it. We had a good time. They asked us to stay on the show. They are all really fantastic people. Every Monday is cool for us because we get to spend it with them.
Yep. So
I do appreciate that. And I agree. There's definitely something special. We have a mutual love and respect for each other as people and as like you said, as talent. And I'm excited to see what Tony's doing with now that I've put direct radio voice in his hands. He's very good at what he does, and he's already doing really, really. You'll see it when you go to Globe, because I'm sure he's bringing it, and bring a recording device is all I'm going to tell you.
Yep, we'll have that with us. Don't worry.
Well, I want you to make sure you say hello from us to the entire team. And
I will.
We wish them the best. And this has been a great interview. Really has, Ron. I wish I could go on with it. I really do, because you have a lot to talk about, and it's amazing. Maybe we'll have you on the show again.
I would
we'll
love
see
it.
what happened. Okay,
I would love it. It's for a tease. That right there, that's probably the book 3.
Okay.
Which is we did a couple of live events with it. One was at the Shanley Hotel with Sam Baltrusis and John Zappis when they were blown away. The other one was at the Pine Bush UFO and Paranormal Museum. And it's a direct radio voice sitting like Marcello Bacci used to do them in Italy, but with the circle and focus of the human circuit of a seance. So that's why I called it the Digital Seance Initiative. And we had unbelievable stuff come through both. And those 2 nights were back to back, the Digital Seance at the museum. And then the next night was at the Shanley, with Sam and Johnny. We had fantastic. Anthony Seminelli from Seekers Club in Queens asked for his mom. If his mom was there, and she was there with his dog Cookie, both of who have passed on. Wow. And then everybody heard a dog bark come out of the speaker.
Wow.
And I got up on the stage and I went, how many people heard that? Raise your hand. And it had to be 99% of everybody was like this.
Wow. That's incredible.
That's very cool.
Book 3 is going to be about a little bit of history of seance, a little bit of history of direct radio voice. And then where the idea came to fuse it, it was unbelievable.
Well, the audience will get to see that. Keith will make sure at the end of the show that we show a little bit about each book, so you know what's going on. And I wish you the best of luck. And in everything you're doing. I sincerely mean that. And we'll talk again, I'm sure.
Yes, I appreciate again the opportunity. Thank you, and I love this because two of my best friends my whole life. Well, now my son and of course Lourdes, my girlfriend, are always two of my best friends. But my father, when I got married, was my best man. He has always been my number one fan. So I love the fact that you guys are sitting there together. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
With that, thank you.
All right, you take care of yourself now. All right, Ron, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Ron.
Thank you for watching today's episode of Bios to Books. I'm Dan Davidson, and until next time, remember, new discoveries never come without searching for them first.
Hello, everyone. I'm Keith Davidson, owner of RCJ Productions. We want to thank everybody for watching today's episode of Bios to Books, featuring paranormal investigator and author Ron the Yakman Yakovetti. Be sure to check out his books on Amazon.com. Visit his social media to see where else you can find his books. Ron can also be seen every Monday night with Entity Voices Paranormal on YouTube. If you're in the market for new books to read, check out some of these great authors and their works, many who have appeared right here on Bios to Books. Be sure to also check out books from Dan Davidson and Rich Marcano, Butterfly Wish, Twice Upon a Time, Soul of Juby Walker, and coming soon, Tasting Raindrops. If YouTube and podcasts are your thing, please check out some other RCJ productions. We have The Truth About Beer and Coffee Table Chronicles, Highway to Your Health, and more. If you're interested in starting a podcast or YouTube channel, please check out RCJ Productions for all your audio, video, and production needs. Thank you for watching Bios to Books.